Thanks for joining us today. Cynthia Martell and myself, we're going to give a presentation on weathering the storm in agriculture and how to cultivate a productive mindset. Today we're coming together to talk about stress and to develop some strategies to deal with stress. Here's our contact information. Feel free to contact us after watching this recording. Either one of us. Cynthia and I both went through the training, get trained to give this presentation. If you're in a different state, you can contact your local extension office for some of these resources. So agriculture ranks among one of the most hazardous industries. Farmers are at a high risk for fatal and non-fatal injuries, according to the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. This high rate of injury leads to stress. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the industry sector that represents agriculture was ranked third in the number and rate of fatal work injuries. Farmers, ranchers, and other agricultural managers had a fatal work injury rate of 24 out of 100,000 full-time worker equivalents. And that compares to a rate of just 3.5 out of 100,000 workers for all other civilian occupations. According to the CDC, every day approximately 100 agricultural workers suffer an injury leading to lost work time. In addition, farmers often have additional financial pressure as well as issues involving property, weather, animals, crops, and neighbors. It is important that we all learn how to manage our stress levels and to reduce the effects of unwanted stress. Too much stress can make you more accident prone and it can affect your health. You can start by learning to identify common stressors, recognize the symptoms of stress, and manage stress. By doing these three things, you will make your workplace safer and live a more fulfilling life. So how is stress defined? Stress is defined as a need or a demand that people confront that is perceived as burdensome or threatening and can lead to physical or mental health problems. Not all stress is bad. When we are excited about something like a wedding, the birth of a baby, or holidays, we feel anticipation. This helps get us mentally and physically ready for the event. This type of stress is called eustress. It energizes us. It's what keeps us going during seeding and harvesting and helps us get things done when normally we might not be able to. However, when we suffer from too much stress, and particularly if it is over a long period of time, this is called distress. Prolonged distress can result in severe physical problems, emotional problems, or both. In many rural areas, a high percentage of visits to family physicians are due to stress-related illnesses. So how do you feel when you are stressed? We're going to give you a lot of resources today, but for this one here, just think about how stress affects you. How does it affect your body? How does it affect your mind? And how does it affect the actions you make? Do you get headaches, stomach aches, backaches, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, racing heart, or nausea? These are all signs of stress in the body. Do you get anxious, angry, sad, bitter, and depressed? Once you start to recognize your own symptoms, you can begin to manage them. In addition to signs of stress in the body, there are signs of stress in the mind. These include feeling anxious, angry, sad, and bitter. Sometimes you can have conflicting emotions at the same time. Actions that show signs of stress in you and others include not being able to sleep or sleeping too much, no appetite or eating too much, increased use of cigarettes, drugs, or alcohol. Actions related to anger can appear as someone breaking things or yelling and screaming. And depressive symptoms often include withdrawal. Well, many times these symptoms are extremes, as you can see in this. Sometimes you get extremely tired or extremely anxious and over energetic. So here's a resource for you. On the left side of this screen is the link, and then on the right side is the picture of the handout that outlines all the things we just went over in the previous slides. Here's another resource for youth farm stress. And again, the link to this resource is on the left, and on the right is a picture of the resource. This is for youth and children on farms. Many youth feel the signs of stress, even if they're not the ones directly involved with the stress on the farms. They don't have the financial problems, but if the parents are stressed, that flows through to the children. And this is a really good handout with some ways to help children that might be under farm stress. These are some resources for opioids in rural communities. Many communities don't have as many social services to help with opioids and opioid addictions, and many farmers have said that they could easily access opioids if they wanted to. So understanding the root causes of stress. What do you think are some common stressors for farmers and their families? So just think about that. What is a common stressor for you and your farm? Now we're going to go through some of them. So weather. So weather can be both acute and chronic. Weather is a stressor because it can impact how well crops turn out, crop yield, and ultimately how much farmers are able to bring in financially. A major weather event may deeply impact the earning potential for the season. Large debt loads. Farmers take on debt to expand farming operation, for land improvements or repairs, to buy, repair, or replace equipment, to keep the farm running, or to cover operating costs. Loans may be useful for recovery after natural disasters. Government regulations may be a source of stress for some farmers. They impact many different parts of the farm as a business. This may include regulations about animals and manure, crops, land use, and labor and water quality, among others. Machinery breakdown would be an example of an acute disruptive event that would require time, money, and repair skill to resolve. High interest rates on loans may be a source of stress if farmers are unsure how they will manage to pay back loans that have generated large amounts of interest. Interest rates change or fluctuate over time, and some farmers have resorted to using high interest credit cards if they are unable to get conventional debts. Crop yield has a direct relationship to financial income to be able to pay bills. Uncertainties related to crop yield, like how to manage pests, could increase stress. Livestock illnesses may be an acute or chronic stressor. Is the illness something that will recur? How many are ill? What are the consequences? High vet bills? Have you lost a lot of livestock and a lot of your income? Commodity prices. They fluctuate over time and impact the financial well-being of the farm. This could be considered a chronic stressor. And what many farms don't like to talk about, even though there are a lot of underlying problems, is disagreements with family members. Many farms are family farms, and you work with family often all day long. The whole family is involved in the farm. There may be disagreements about important decisions that impact the well-being of the farm. This may be a chronic stressor if these conversations occur often. And with some big decisions, it may be more of an acute stressor. When responsibilities start to pile up on top of each other, farm life can be stressful. During times of stress, family and community members can offer one another a great amount of support. So now I'm going to show a short video on how stress affects our bodies.
Cramming for a test? Trying to get more done than you have time to do? Stress is a feeling we all experience when we are challenged or overwhelmed. But more than just an emotion, stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout your entire body. In the short term, stress can be advantageous, but when activated too often or too long, your primitive fight or flight stress response not only changes your brain, but also damages many of the other organs and cells throughout your body. Your adrenal gland releases the stress hormones cortisol, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine. As these hormones travel through your bloodstream, they easily reach your blood vessels and heart. Adrenaline causes your heart to beat faster and raises your blood pressure, over time causing hypertension. Cortisol can also cause the endothelium, or inner lining of blood vessels, to not function normally. Scientists now know that this is an early step in triggering the process of atherosclerosis, or cholesterol plaque buildup in your arteries. Together, these changes increase your chances of a heart attack or stroke. When your brain senses stress, it activates your autonomic nervous system. Through this network of nerve connections, your big brain communicates stress to your enteric or intestinal nervous system. Besides causing butterflies in your stomach, this brain-gut connection can disturb the natural rhythmic contractions that move food through your gut, leading to irritable bowel syndrome, and can increase your gut's sensitivity to acid, making you more likely to feel heartburn. Via the gut's nervous system, stress can also change the composition and function of your gut bacteria, which may affect your digestive and overall health. Speaking of digestion, does chronic stress affect your waistline? Well, yes. Cortisol can increase your appetite. It tells your body to replenish your energy stores with energy-dense foods and carbs, causing you to crave comfort foods. High levels of cortisol can also cause you to put on those extra calories as visceral or deep belly fat. This type of fat doesn't just make it harder to button your pants. It is an organ that actively releases hormones and immune system chemicals called cytokines that can increase your risk of developing chronic diseases, such as heart disease and insulin resistance. Meanwhile, stress hormones affect immune cells in a variety of ways. Initially, they help prepare to fight invaders and heal after injury, but chronic stress can dampen the function of some immune cells, make you more susceptible to infections, and slow the rate you heal. Want to live a long life? You may have to curb your chronic stress. That's because it has even been associated with shortened telomeres, the shoelace tip ends of chromosomes that measure a cell's age. Telomeres cap chromosomes to allow DNA to get copied every time a cell divides without damaging the cell's genetic code. And they shorten with each cell division. When telomeres become too short, a cell can no longer divide, and it dies. As if all that weren't enough, chronic stress has even more ways it can sabotage your health, including acne, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, headaches, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and irritability. So, what does all this mean for you? Your life will always be filled with stressful situations, but what matters to your brain and entire body is how you respond to that stress. If you can view those situations as challenges you can control and master, rather than as threats that are insurmountable, you will perform better in the short run and stay healthy in the long run.
All right, so in this video here, we saw how stress affects your body and creates physical health issues. So we saw a lot about cortisol in that video. Cortisol is known as a stress hormone and is released in times of fear and stress. Cortisol increases glucose in the bloodstream. But it can motivate us to act. However, when cortisol levels remain elevated, perhaps due to chronic stress, this can have detrimental effects on our health. Cortisol alters our immune system, suppresses digestive and reproductive systems, and suppresses growth processes. Cortisol changes our moods, fears, and motivation. Health problems associated with higher cortisol levels include heart disease, lowered immune system response, digestive problems, sleep problem, issues with memory and concentration, weight gain, anxiety, depression, and lower life expectancy. So as you can see here, there's two jars on this slide. On the left is a jar with clear water in. So when you're not under stress and don't have cortisol in your bloodstream, think of it this way. Think of it as you can see clearly. You can see through this jar. And then compare it to the jar on the right. When you have under a lot of stress and you have cortisol in your bloodstream, your thoughts are foggy, and many of the decisions you make may be foggy and blurred because of this cortisol in your bloodstream. So now I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia, and she's going to finish out the slides.
Hey, Jeremy. It's showing is a small screen. Teeny tiny on my end.
Okay.
And I can see our notes on the sides.
Okay, let me switch the screens. Try this and this screen. And this one. How's that?
Nope, hasn't moved. Oh, hold on. I think it's a little delayed. There we go. Now it's full screen.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so now I'm going to start talking to you guys. Jeremy has made sure that the presentation has all the necessary links to get these handouts. So you just have to click on the links or copy and paste them into your whatever internet browser you use, and you should be able to pull up these links. What we're going to do is talk to you about how to cultivate a productive mindset. And from there, we're going to talk to you about some effective coping strategies and what's in your toolbox. Next. Can you go to the next slide?
Is it on key points?
It's still on identifying your social support system.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
So we're going to talk to you about how, since everybody has a toolbox, some of these tools in your toolbox you probably haven't used in a long time. So we're going to teach you how to remember those that you may have forgotten. It's just like a metaphor saying your toolbox, but there's things in there. And we're going to go over some key points of how you can bring back those memories of things you can use. So some of the key points that we're going to go over is think about a coping strategy or a tool that's available in your toolbox that you have. Often we don't have the tools that would be most useful in our current toolbox, so we may need to get help getting it from somebody else or for somebody else. We may need to learn how to use a tool that works better in solving a problem than other tools. If one way a person handles stress is to overeat or self-medicate with alcohol or cigarettes, these are tools or strategies, but they are poor options that could be replaced with a more effective option, such as daily exercise. So we want to think about these things. We want to find and use effective coping strategies, and there's several things that can be helpful. Think about ways you seek to manage your stress. What are you doing? Does the approach have any helpful effect or a harmful effect when you use that approach to deal with your stress? Think about matching the strategy you will use with a particular need. Perhaps you are used to handling all equipment concerns on the farm, but you have another person available who is competent in that same area. And maybe you need to delegate this task if you're really stressed out and let them handle it. So the strategy is to delegate some of the tasks to another person to help lighten your load. And it could be matched with the need of handling equipment's concerns. Maybe you're really good at breeding your cows, but your pregnancy rate's gone down, but there's another competent person on the farm that can do that. Delegate some of those tasks to them. We also want to think about brainstorming and exploring a variety of coping strategies that are available. Focus on using those strategies that are most effective and that work for you and your circumstance. What works for you may not work for somebody else. So you always have to remember that. Learning new strategies and adapting different ways to manage strategy and manage your stress that you have not used before may be necessary. Things like practicing such mindfulness can help in managing your stress. Changing the way you work, your schedule time can also be examples of doing something differently. The biggest thing is you want to be open to new coping practices that could be useful for you. Next. So next we're going to talk about 3 main strategies that you can use in managing your stress. What we can do to manage our stress is to think about things. Self-talk. It is true to say that you need to be careful how you're talking to yourself because you are listening. Your body hears what you're saying, so we want to try to encourage you to use positive words and phrases, and that can help influence how you feel and how we handle stress. If you're always thinking negative thoughts or always using negative words, negative thoughts and phrases, you tend to lean towards that negative trail. So we want to wrangle you back in and think positive thoughts. I encourage people to write down 3 positive words that you can use on a daily basis to help you remember to think positive when you're in a stressful situation. Next. This gives you a good example of some things. If you're thinking negative, how it could reflect back on yourself and onto others. Just a little laugh for you for today. Next. Think about how you respond to your own thoughts. Do you struggle to control your thoughts, your feelings, and your body sensations? Do you get mad easily? Do you feel sad easily? Or do you get busy or eat so you don't notice? Think about, do you blame yourself for thinking or feeling that way when something's going on around you? If you answer yes to these questions, these issues can become problems over time. If it sounds familiar to you, that this is going on, you need to take the time to stop and slow down. Picture in your mind a time that you experienced stressful or unwanted thoughts, feelings, or body sensations that maybe have occurred in the last couple days, couple months, things that are going on. And think about which of these 4 ways you can use to respond to that action or that unwanted feeling that's going on. Do you control, manage, avoid, or blame? So you have to think about what do you do to cope with the unwanted feelings or sensations. Do you overeat, smoke, or do you go for a walk, something healthy? How did you try, what did you try that worked for you? As we know, overeating is not good. People gain weight. Smoking's not good. It's unhealthy. But walking is good for you. It gets you out. You get exercise and fresh air. Did you stop having those thoughts when you were doing something good for your body? So you want to stop and think about these things for a moment and figure out what you did during those stressful times. Maybe you didn't do anything, but now you can think about how you can change those things going further. We often are very hard on ourselves and feel like a failure when we're doing things when we can't control what's going on or control our thoughts. You have to remember the truth is difficult to control or stop those thoughts. We want to make sure we respond to them the right way. In some ways we can do this is picking those, like I said, those few words. Pick 3 words, whether you write them out on a sticky note, you put them on the wall, you put them in your phone, however you need to do it. Pick 3 words. Pick something negative you've thought about and you typically have, and work to change it into a positive thought. Your body hears what the mind thinks, so choose your thoughts with purpose. Tell yourself that you can overcome any challenge. When you're choosing those 3 words, tell yourself to help maintain the mindset you want. Some of those words you might be able to choose is calm, capable, controlled. I've heard people say, well, actually a lot of people have used the words when we've done these programs as blessed. They feel blessed that they have the ability to do what they do, even in a stressful time. Our second strategy is using your breath. You're going to learn how to use your breath to calm your body and your mind. Remember that jar of cortisol. The shaken up, dirty version is when you're really stressed and what your brain is going through. So taking deep breaths when your brain is full of cortisol can help you calm you down before you say something you may regret later, or may do that you regret later. So the easiest thing you can do, and you can do this while you're listening to us talk, is find your pulse. You're going to start counting, and you're going to time yourself for 15 seconds. And then when you're going to stop, you're going to write that number down of how many pulses you could count. The next thing you're going to do is find a relaxing position in a chair. Outside, maybe, if you're doing this afterwards, underneath a really nice tree. You're going to close your eyes, or maybe just lower them to a spot on the floor where you can focus. And you're going to start breathing in and out at a normal pace for 3 minutes. During that 3 minutes, you're going to relax your body. When you're done, you slowly open your eyes and you take a deep breath. The biggest thing is take your pulse again for another 15 seconds and write that number down, or keep track of it. And then you want to make sure you look around and think, how do I feel? Did your pulse go down? Does your body feel more relaxed? So when you're in a stressful situation, these are some breathing steps you can take to help reduce your stress load and take your deep breaths. The third strategy we're going to talk about is the use of acceptance. Next. Have you ever heard the expression, I have a lot on my plate? Well, that's what most people are going to say. Most farmers do have a lot on their plate. Take a piece of paper out, and you're going to write all over this paper all the things that stressed you out. You can use words, pictures, symbols, whatever you need to do. And then I want you, when you're done, to circle all the things on your plate you have no control over. So in the case of you're trying to put your corn in the field and it rains, you have no control over the rain. It may have stressed you out and became really hard for you, but you have no control over that. It turns out that sometimes the things that make us the most stressed are things that we feel we have no control over. Not all problems can be solved. Not all situations can be changed. This is where acceptance can help. When things are beyond your control, the most productive step you can take is to accept it. Making acceptance a part of your mindset can save you time and energy by letting you focus on a solution instead of getting frustrated during the problem. So you have to try to make the word acceptance part of your self-talk and using that during your deep breathing as a time to pause, accept, and begin problem solving. So the biggest thing is if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. Now the next thing we're going to do is teach you how you're going to help somebody else. You learned how all the signs and symptoms of stress. You learned some strategies to help you cope with things that are going on in your life, but you can also help everybody else around you. And to do that, one of the things you can go to is how are you going to respond to people that are distressed. When people go from the stressed to depressed state, they can start thinking about suicide. So we're going to address how we ask somebody about suicide. You might need to ask somebody how they feel. You might have to ask somebody directly about their thoughts, and that's okay. Asking them directly does not increase the risk of suicide and actually may provide the person with relief that someone sees their struggle. The question on this screen is one way to ask someone whether they are thinking about suicide. You can take a few minutes to practice asking the question out loud to yourself, just so you understand how to go about it. We are trying to break the stigmatism behind mental health and also behind suicide, that it's okay to ask for help. The thing is, you want to think about, what is it like to ask that question? Some people feel concerned when asking this question. What if someone says yes? If someone says yes, do not leave that person alone. Call for help, take them to the hospital or a healthcare provider. Calling for help may mean calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, a family member, a community mental health organization, or other healthcare providers, or 911 for emergency medical services. We've provided you with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number. This is a useful resource. This is the national suicide number that reroutes calls to regional call centers. All the responders through this lifeline have been trained on how to talk with people experiencing distress and who may be thinking about suicide. They can help make suggestions to people about what they can do to get help. You can also look at some of these other useful resources. There are also resources located in each of your counties for community health partners that offer counseling services. For instance, here in Franklin County, that services Franklin, Henry, and Patrick County in Virginia, we have Piedmont Community Services. In Jeremy's area, up in Harrisonburg, they have a community service group as well. Some other state resources is the Virginia 211. It's a free referral and information hotline that connects people with a wide range of resources. You can also call 911 988. So where do we go from here? We can either look to going towards the stressful situation or the relaxation side. Next. But for what we would like you to do before we end this and before you guys go, since you can't ask us questions directly through chat, is we would like for you to please fill out the evaluation survey located in this Virginia Tech Qualtrics survey. You can also reach back to us At any time you have questions, you can contact myself or Jeremy through our information that's given, through our email, or calling us at our offices to reach us, and we'd be more than happy to help you.